Thank you. Hello, my name is Ji Young-seo, and I'm currently a student who is studying for about a year and a half at Hearsay. I'm 27 years old, and I'd like to tell you my Hearsay story. I want to begin with the fact that today in my presentation, you may notice some similarity between what I spoke about in February. Only 2 months ago, I wasn't 100% confident with the complete speech in English. But today, I feel very comfortable to share my story with you, exactly as a native speaker would share their story with you. First, I would like to tell you how I studied English and how I ended up coming here. When I was 17, I was crazy about the singer named Aaron Carter. He was so good looking, and in essence, I fell in love with him at first sight. Here's a short clip of his video, just in case you're curious.
I'm all grown up now, run and tell your friend. It's all sewn up now. Don't even play it. I'm not too young, I'm not too old.
That's why I used to listen to his songs every single day, sing along to them, and even write down his lyrics. Since then, English was just something that was fun to me, a kind of game. But in college, in order to get a job, I had to take TOEIC. So I decided to take TOEIC classes for about 2 months. I took notes like crazy, but I couldn't memorize it. It wasn't fun, it was actually quite boring. And that's when I realized that this wasn't real English. So I took TOEIC speaking and picked tests to get the scores that I wanted, but at the same time, I couldn't have a real conversation with the native speaker. And that was quite frustrating. And I kept wondering to myself, what is real English? What is English really? And while I was frustrated and kind of roaming around confused as to how I could learn English well, my professor gave me a book, Mr. Yoon's book. He said that this is the only way that I could learn how to speak English. After reading his book, I became very interested in what Mr. Yoon was saying and his method of learning English. I decided to join the Naval Cafe. It was the first time that someone had ever told me that you didn't have to memorize words or grammar in order to speak English. And that really, really drew my attention. Isn't it so great, the fact that we don't have to memorize anymore? I felt a type of freedom, a kind of freedom from his words. And that is why I decided to come here. Isn't life so interesting? Before I get to the main stories, I think you guys would be most interested in my change in sound. That's why I prepared 2 vocal samples from various periods of time. First, let me play a sample of myself from day 1.
It's against the law for anyone in medical profession to employ an ex-offender. Shaving your head's not gonna make you feel more like a man if you don't feel it inside. By the way, do you know how many companies in Las Vegas start with SUN?
It sounds like your typical Korean student reading English. This next recording is the most recent example of how I sound.
Why do Colton coerce his victims into confessing details of a crime that identifies him as the killer, then leave that information at the scene for the police to find? Since we haven't been visited by any tourists from the future, I think it's a pretty safe bet that nobody's gonna find one tomorrow either.
It's only 1 month ago. These days, I'm practicing the 300 sentences because my sound is still a little unnatural. So every day, I listen to 60 sentences and repeat them. I also test myself. Through practicing the 300 sentences, it's become easier to copy new sentences, and practicing the old ones is a lot easier. Can you hear the little changes in my overall sound? In the examples I played, I feel like the biggest difference from when I first came to Hearsay is in the way that I speak. But the only way for me to show you a concrete example is to let you hear me, so I was a bit nervous. I hope you're able to hear, even if only a little, the difference in the way that I sound. Now, I'm going to tell you guys the story of my Hearsay journey through 3 different stories. My first story is, oh my God, I can hear it. And the second story is freedom from memorization. And the third story is, now I'm a commander. My first story of, oh my God, I can hear it, is basically a story of the first time I was able to hear English. After completing the first 300 sentences, I came across an American drama. The actor said something that was similar to a line from the 300 sentences. Clearly, this was a different situation in a different drama with a different actor. But I was able to hear it with such a clarity. And when I heard it, it was the greatest feeling. And that's when I realized that this method was working. The point of this story is that once I was familiar with sounds and expressions, I was able to hear. Mr. Yun always says that in order for us to speak English like a native speaker, we must fulfill two conditions. The first is familiarity with sound, and the second is familiarity with expression. First, what is familiarity with sound? It is learning how they make sounds and in what way they make sounds. Mr. Yun clearly tells us that Westerners make sounds differently than we Koreans do, and that there is a sound that they make that comes from the bottom up. This isn't something that is recognized through your brain. But after listening to the 300 sentences and Mr. Yun's lecture daily, you will eventually begin to recognize it through your ears. The more your ears recognize the sounds that you make through your mouth, the closer you can become to that sound, just like the changes in my overall sound. But you can't be in a rush. It's something that changes over time. Second, what is familiarity with expressions? It means knowing what native speakers say and in what sort of situations. Let's think about this. If we're in a bad mood and we wanted to express that feeling in English to a foreigner, it may be an expression they have never heard before. For example, in Korean, we may say, 기분이 너무 꿀꿀해서 매운 게 엄청 땡겨, which would be unfamiliar to them in meaning, like this. I crave spicy food because I'm in a bad mood. But in English, they may say, I'm so sad I could eat a horse, to reflect the same feeling. This is how learning familiarity with expressions helps. Through practicing the 300 sentences and watching dramas and movies and having class with native speakers, we are expanding our range of expressions. So, I want to share the familiarity with sound and the familiarity with expressions in the red and yellow. Right now, I begin to hear as much as I can with the expressions and sounds that I've expanded. So where these two circles meet is where I am at. For native speakers, these two circles are combined. That is why I think that if I expand my familiarity more, I'll become a native speaker. Doesn't this fill you with hope? Exactly. This is my wonderful discovery. As I was preparing this presentation for this event, my desire was to give you that same feeling of hope. The second story that I want to share with you is titled Freedom from Memorization. Mr. Yun always tells us English or any language is something that must be naturally absorbed. After 7 months, we began to write the 300 sentences in English. But before I started this practice, I always thought, will I be able to do that? I've never memorized words before. I've always gotten a lot of spelling wrong. Will I be able to write something after listening to it once? I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. But after trying it, I was surprised as to how well I can write. This event gave me chills. I felt that way because I knew that I never really looked at the script intently. So it made me think, since when was I able to write these words? Wow, wow, wow! While I was in intensive class, I saw some people carrying around vocabulary books. And I'm sure there are a few people here who feel like you need to continuously memorize 20 words just so that you don't lose your touch. But my answer is don't. Don't memorize words. Just take a look at these words that we commonly make mistakes with. When I was in elementary school and middle school, I had to memorize these words. But it wasn't familiar to me, so I created my own way to say these words, like friend as free end, people as pupil, comfortable as comfortable, recognize as recognize. These are just some common mistakes that I and other hearsay students have noticed, but there are many more. When we try to memorize words on our own, we read and learn it our own way, which ends up creating a barrier for us. You should just focus solely on the sounds. Over time, the vocabulary and grammar will come naturally to you. I decided to call my third story, Now I'm a Commander. At about 8 months, we began to have classes with native speakers. Embarrassingly enough, when we first started these classes, I was like a newborn baby. I couldn't understand much, nor could I speak. But 5 months later, I could confidently say that I am now at the level of second grader. As you all may know, second graders can speak and express what is on their minds. Even then, I was so happy I felt like I could fly. As more time has passed, no matter how long a sentence is, I'm able to listen to it comfortably and understand the overall meaning of what's being said in conversation. I think it's really fun and interesting event to see that change and even not to look back on it. Since then, I ask my conversation teachers about various issues and bring the topic of conversation to the table. I hadn't really tried this before, so when it happens, my teacher becomes a little surprised and even caught off guard. So in conversation class now, I feel like I've learned to be somewhat of commander of speech now that I can give some direction to the conversation and its flow. Also, I can feel deep inside myself that there's an even bigger change than before. I've become more confident and it just keeps happening. I keep growing more and more, becoming assured that this is the right path for me. As I mentioned before, I'm still learning. But learning English the hearsay way over the past 15 months has been and is still intense. Have you all heard the change in my sound between February and now? You may or may not recognize the difference, but I can tell you that there's definitely been a change in my sound and the way that I speak, especially my confidence. I hope that you can all relate to my transformation. As a person who has experienced these fun events in the past 15 months, I want to tell you that these are some of the things that happened to me, but that if you all work hard, this can happen to you too. Through these 3 series, I wanted to tell you that during the 15 months I've spent here, there have been a lot of changes. Also, I have a great hope for the changes that will continue to happen in the future. I will continue to share my experiences with you all. Thank you for listening.
감사합니다. 들을 수 있고 말할 수 있고 게다가 단어 외우기로부터의 해방이라고 합니다. 제가 어제 지하철 20분 타는 데만 해도 다 영어 단어 외우는 분 3분 봤거든요. 소리 영어가 시급히 전파되어야 할 것 같습니다. 네, 이번에는 프리토킹 시간인데요. 어떤 대화를 나눌지 2분을 큰 박수로 모시겠습니다.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, you did a great job on your presentation today.
Oh, really? That sounds great. Hey, I know you're a yoga teacher and you worked with natural medicine, right?
Yeah, I am certified in yoga and practice Indian medicine in America.
I'd like to talk to you more about healthy lifestyle and diet. I'd also like to share some things that I've experienced.
Yeah, sounds good. Tell me about it.
Okay. In high school, I was always the thinnest of all of my friends. I was really used to being that person. I never gained or lost weight or tried to force my body to be any way. It was just natural for me to be skinny.
So then what happened after high school?
When I studied college, I met a nice girl and we became very close friends. But there was one thing. She was even thinner than me. I didn't care too much about it at first.
Oh, so how did that affect you?
As time passed, the other classmates made fun of me, saying things like, "She is skinny, but you're a normal-sized person," or "Your leg is twice as big as hers."
Oh, so how did that make you feel?
Well, at that time, I was only 20 years old, so I was sensitive and felt so hurt.
Oh.
Sometimes I cried because I was so angry and even pretty depressed.
Yeah, people can be such bullies. It's so sad. So what did you end up doing?
That's when I started to diet, but I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of people usually do in the beginning. What kind of mistakes did you make?
Just reduce the amount of food that I eat by half. That way, I felt I would lose a lot of weight.
Yeah, that's not so healthy for your body.
Yeah, I found that out as time went on. It made me want to eat even more.
Yep.
So many times, so my weight would come back even quicker and sometimes increase.
That's exactly what happens.
So many times I go back and forth between losing weight and gaining weight.
I bet with the ups and downs of your weight, you probably had some ups and downs in your emotions too.
Definitely. Emotionally, I was a little messed up and unstable during the time because I was so obsessed with my weight. Sometimes I was happy and sometimes I'm so sad,
Yeah.
depending on my weight.
So I know you're pretty healthy now. So what did you do to get your life back on track?
After 2 years, I finally started to accept my friends and myself for who we were. And I just want to see we were both different people and that was the way that we were born. We all have good and bad qualities. And I just want to have acceptance for others.
Nice. That's the most important thing is to changing how you feel. So what about your diet and lifestyle? How was that affected?
I decided to live a more healthy life, not for others, but for me. Because of that, I do more exercise, eat more fresh food, and reduce my salt and sugar intake. I especially like to eat brown rice because, it's good for your health.
Yeah, it definitely is. So that's your diet. What about your exercise? What kind of exercises did you do?
These days, I just try to various exercises like yoga, Pilates, and weight training.
Oh, okay. So how was yoga?
At first, I took morning yoga classes. It was really hard to wake up so early.
Yeah.
But after class, I felt like I gained more energy throughout the day. And it helped me to build my core muscles and increase flexibility.
Yeah, yoga is really good for that.
Around the same time, I was curious about Pilates, so I decided to give that a try too.
Okay, so I've never had a chance to do Pilates. How was Pilates for you?
It's very similar to yoga. The teacher taught many muscle strengthening activities, but the amount of stretching wasn't enough for me.
So are you still doing yoga and Pilates now?
No, not now. In yoga and Pilates, the wrists are used a lot. I tend to have weak joints already, and even my wrists have some slight problems. So this practice made my wrist issue a lot worse.
Well, a good yoga teacher can help you to work around that. So then what kind of exercises are you doing now?
These days, I just do cardio and weight training for my health.
So it sounds like you really gained and learned a lot through this whole experience. Actually, do you think you'll ever do yoga and Pilates again?
If I can find a good teacher who understands my body's weaknesses and work around them, I'd like to continue those practices.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you really learned a lot through this experience with your friend, and it helped you to learn more about yourself. So.
Yeah, I feel like my lifestyle has changed a lot since I was 20. I'm really glad I met that friends because going through that experience really helped me to grow and learn more about my health and life.
Well, if you ever want some tips on yoga, maybe I can give you some advice like outside of class time.
Really? That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Great.
Thank you for coming up to talk to me.
You're very welcome.
Yes, let's finish.